All right, welcome to Project Game Day and what is shaping up to be one of the more unpleasant Project Game Days in some time as the Ravens lose and fall to 0-2 as they lose at home to the Raiders 26 to 23. The whole crew's here, and I'll get to them. Project Game Day is made possible by 1-800-GAMBLER. No cost treatment now available for anyone wanting help with a gambling problem. All right, we'll go one by one. I'll start. Andrew Stecca was on first. Andrew, what do you want to get off your chest?
I mean, this is a pathetic team right now. That was one of the worst performances I've seen from this team in a really long time. They're undisciplined. They're just they cannot block on the offense. We talked after the Chiefs game. They couldn't block on the offensive line, and yeah, Chris Jones and we knew Max Crosby would be an issue, but they are rough right now. That was really bad. And we were talking before we started here, and I hadn't even looked on the schedule and didn't realize like they're in a really precarious position right now. Like it could get a little bit uglier before it gets any better. That's how bad that looked. I'm way more fired up than I was after the
All
loss
right,
to the Chiefs.
all right. Let me go to Reeta.
He just he just wanted to just say hello.
Vontae, I love you, bro.
Very true. He's not happy. I just wanted you guys to know.
I don't blame you.
Not happy at all.
Yeah. Hey, that jersey looks great though, Vontae. That's a good looking jersey, man. Love that guy. Very sad about what we're discussing. Hey, love you, buddy. Well,
always 12.
Always 12.
12 forever.
What it meant for the city, what it meant for Baltimore. 12 was my dude. We're going to remember him forever. His legacy will forever live in Baltimore State.
No question about any of that.
Back to us complaining.
All right, Rita, I'll let you go next since you're right there. Go ahead. What do you want to get off your chest immediately afterwards? Rita, you got to turn your mic. Yeah, I'm talking to you.
Oh, yeah, that was hard to watch. That was hard to swallow, y'all. Like, I mean, we knew this line wasn't going to be good, but it's not even about them not. It is about them not being good. I think the bigger question is what is the management doing? Why is it guys? Why is Lele in a position like that? And where is Ben Cleveland? I just have questions. I don't understand the decision making here when it comes to the offensive line and why they felt like this was the go-to. I would like an explanation. And Femi, maybe if you have one, I would love to know because it just feels like Harbaugh, for whatever reason, doesn't like Ben Cleveland. But you can't tell me he's worse than what we've seen. I think that's my biggest issue.
Femi?
Yeah, I think philosophically, I think they decided to get young and they figured they'd go through some growing pains. But I don't think they thought it was going to be this bad. I mean, Makari, first play of the game, gives up a sack. You know what I mean? The effort, the communication, the technique. I mean, wow. I'm speechless. I did not expect this today. And they were up by 10 in the fourth quarter.
That's the part, Femi.
You know what I mean? Like they're up by 10. And to answer Rita's question, I can't speak to Ben Cleveland specifically, but I can say that from a large, long-term projection, they figured, look, we're going to start fresh with a bunch of young linemen. We're going to build around our center and Ronnie Stanley, and they're going to come along, and Lamar and these receivers and our tight ends are going to make enough plays that as they get better, that we're going to be all right by the time we hit the middle of the season. But there's no middle end of the season if you can't win some games now. You know what I mean? You're 0-2 now. And I think that historically, at least in a 16 playoff, I think your chances of making the playoffs when you start 0-2, I know there's 7 teams in the playoffs now, is like 12%. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, I mean, there's a lot of games left to be played, but, I can tell you right now, it only takes one play to change the whole complexion of a game. And that interception, that was the dagger right there. And I'm not saying the game was over, but if you look at everything that happened after that interception, that gave them life. And once again, I'm not saying the refs are against the Baltimore Ravens, but goodness gracious, please. The penalties that they're missing and the phantom penalties that they're calling are adding to our own issues. We have issues for sure outside of that, no doubt about it. But then you have the pass interference call in the end zone, which is definitely not. I thought they were going to call offensive pass interference because Devontae Adams had no chance of getting that ball. Yeah. And then the face mask that wasn't a face mask. I mean, come on. And I don't know, this the defense looked good to start the game, but I feel like Odafe Owe is off the field too much. He's like the best pass rush guy we got. I mean, and don't get me wrong, Van Noy played a great game today, but I feel like Odafe Owe is on the sideline in like real dire situations, and we need his energy. We need him out there. No disrespect to the other guys, but they're not him right now. I feel like he's really come a long way, and he's making an impact. And clearly, Zach Orr is not Mike. You know what I mean? Not yet. I'm looking at some of the decision making on zone versus blitz and the use of Kyle Hamilton. Kyle Hamilton has not had a splash play yet that I can think of. I can't think of one. Maybe I'm missing one, but I feel like the way that Mike used him last year and how he's being used now, I know Zach's coming along. There's a lot of growing up that has to be done at the coordinator position, at the offensive line. And I'm still a little bit I can't say that we've found our play calling stride on offense either. You know, I mean, Derrick Henry was used a lot better in the second half, but we had 11 yards rushing in the first half, I think.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's getting worse before it's getting better, just being honest. And, you guys know how I feel. Like, this is my team. This is my squad. I'm not going anywhere. It's for life. Like, this is my team. But I went from like cautiously like optimistic last week to like, okay, we're going to be fine. Like, we just went into the best teams home field and we just played them to the final second of the fourth quarter with a chance to potentially tie or win that game. And then the Raiders, like, they are not a playoff team, in my opinion. Now, maybe Antonio is going to figure out a way to make them a playoff team, and they played with a lot of heart today. When you look at talent, 1 through 53, are you going to tell me that this team has any business hanging with Baltimore Ravens? I'm just
they're a top heavy team, and to the credit, the top heavy made the difference today, right? Like Devontae Adams.
No, they have one guy that can make plays.
Max Crosby makes play. Like
I'm talking about They have one guy on offense and they have one guy on defense.
I
Brock
think
Bowers looks pretty good.
I think we got to start thinking about Brock Bowers and that. And some of that might be.
Let's talk. He's a rookie, but I'm saying he's a first round draft pick. But what I'm saying is that my analysis still stands. 1 through 53.
Oh, I agree. Yes.
This team has no business competing, going cross country here in Baltimore with the Ravens. We let them hang around. We let them take that game from us.
Experience the thrill of live betting with the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbooks in Towson and Canton. Green Turtle Sportsbooks, the ultimate destination for game day excitement and in-person betting. Femi, a couple of things that you said. That's the funny part, because I know we're all fixated on the offensive line, and the offensive line's a disaster. But to the point, even after the pick, right, they give up the touchdown, but then they go back down and score a touchdown of their own, and they're still up 10 in the fourth quarter. And the part that I can't shake today, my big picture, is a football team that has Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry in their backfield should never, ever, ever be losing a game where they lead by double digits in the fourth quarter. Like, that can't. What is the point of anything that you're doing if you can't close a game? We talked about whether or not, I know you were always big on going out and getting a running back, but you and I have talked about, was running back the most prudent way to go about spending money this offseason, or could you win with the running backs that you had and you could maybe use an upgrade somewhere else? You prioritized running back. In part, that to me is you damn well have to be capable of finishing off every game that you lead in the fourth quarter if that's the way that you go about building your football team. That's the alarming part of today for me.
Who's the guy that I loved and I've loved and who's out there balling for the Chargers right now?
Yeah,
who's that
guy? J.K. Dobbins.
Brilliant. I've been a J.K. fan from day one. I said, don't let that man go. I wanted to see J.K. and Derrick Henry together. That's what I wanted to see. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that J.K. Well, I don't know what I'm saying in regard to what J.K. could have been and could have done here. I understand maybe everybody needed to part ways. I don't think that needed to happen. But he's out there doing what I knew was eventually going to happen. You know what I mean? You went this far with him. I felt like you should have kept him around. Now, we're going brotherly shove on 3rd and 1. You know what I mean? Like we're going brotherly shove with Lamar
Yep.
and Derrick Henry in the backfield. We're going brotherly
Yep.
shove. Okay.
Yep.
Derrick Henry played well today, but that penalty was another
Oh,
dagger.
critical.
It just seems like there's these key moments that right now just aren't going our way, and maybe regression to the mean. We'll have some of those go our way later in the year, but right now, I'm just going to be honest with you, man. I'm just like, and then the challenges, like, just not necessary. Those are not challengeable plays. Neither one of them were challengeable plays. And Justin Tucker misses another field goal. He misses another field goal that he should, to me, that I feel like, like last week he missed a field goal, which a lot of people didn't talk about because the way the game ended. But this game ended by a 3-point loss. You know what I mean? And that field goal looms large now. And those timeouts that were used on challenges looms large now. So, we're looking at a full kind of top down and bottom up, from players on the field to decisions in the booth and on the sideline, that I think are having somewhat of an effect. You know what I mean? And that's my analyst hat, looking at the field and looking at the game from the TV as I watch it. You know what I mean?
KZ, are you actually there, or is it just like your ghost? Because I believe KZ wanted to say something about Justin Tucker, and that was specifically why
I'm here. I didn't plan on saying anything because I'm going to be fair.
Well, I heard. You remember I used to have the Lamar meter in the studio. KZ's decided he wants to have.
Right?
Yeah. Thank you.
I mean, we've talked about it, since last year. We talked about it week 1. He's not the weapon he was. I hate to say it, but those are misses that aren't happening around the league anymore. Like week 1, you saw the record for the most 50-yard plus field goals in the history of the NFL. You're seeing today kickers that, he's a Hall of Fame kicker, but he's not the weapon he once was, and it's hurting the team at this point. Those are sadly kicks that we used to expect him to make. And I don't know about you all. I have zero confidence over 50. When he goes out there over 50, I'm the other way now. I'm really the other way. And I hate to say that.
Right, and I think part of it now becomes, what is your decision making and play calling ahead of potential 4th down situations? Like I do think that at some point this has to be acknowledged, and it felt like in a way that was being acknowledged at the end of the first half when they didn't even bother to try to go to the end zone and instead simply just said, let's go get a few more yards to try to make this a shorter kick for Justin Tucker. It feels like it's absurd for us to suggest that today is going to be a day that they're going to cut Justin Tucker or move on or something like that, because it does still matter that he's making all the kicks from inside 50 yards. Like, all that stuff is relevant. But I do think there is a tangible problem that exists here, which is on 3rd and 8 from the 35, 36-yard line, you might just have to be thinking about, let's just make sure we get 5 yards instead of trying to drop back and convert on 3rd down, because I don't think that you can trust that kick is going to be made.
It affects everything. I agree. And, we talked about, how long can you be on a watch list and keep missing and not have it escalate more? And nobody's saying they're not. Justin Tucker's going to be the kicker for the Baltimore Ravens the rest of this season. So it's like, it is what it is, but it does have to change your thinking. It just does.
I mean, what's crazy? The Ravens have lost their last 3 games.
Yep. Yeah, sure. AFC Championship, first 2 games of the season, no question about it.
And let me ask you guys a question. And this is for you. This is for everybody. But I'm going to ask this question. We get the ball back. I think the game was tied 23-23, I believe.
Yes.
And we get the ball, and I think Lamar gets sacked.
Yes.
And then we run a draw, and then we basically throw a flat route. Like,
yep.
I mean,
to your point, didn't really try to push the ball downfield.
And then the punter shanks it.
Yep.
Like, I'm just saying, like, just think of the decision making from when the Raiders scored that field goal. Or I'm sorry. It was tied. Yeah, okay, it was tied. So they got
354 left.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, that's what I'm saying. We basically went passive Like to me, that was the game right there. I was like,
after the sack, right?
Well, after the sack, they did,
right.
yeah.
To the
Yeah,
point,
but-
Femi, what you're saying is, it went through my. I actually said something that my 9-year-old wasn't a responsive audience to it, right? But that moment in a lot of game situations, you completely understand. You just lost 9 yards on first down. You want to see what you can get back. Don't do anything crazy. But in that moment, the game situation is the exact opposite way. All of the momentum is now on the other
their
side.
You've got to be aggressive.
Every ounce. You do
by
not.
Because by being passive, you're playing right into their hand. They already, like, you've got to do something big to quell that whole thing. Because to me, it's like, oh, wow, they're going passive. And then they just, like, to me, what I would have loved to see is come out and hand that ball to Derrick Henry. You got plenty of time. Like, get 2nd and 7, be it 2nd and 8. I would have been fine. 2nd and 5, even anything but what happened. You know what I mean? You already know that you're backed up, sort of like you're like what, on the 20-yard line. You know what I mean? Like, you're not. It's not like you're like,
they're starting at the 30. Yeah, it was a
the 30.
touchback.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So my point is, though, is that I just needed to see something with some energy, and I felt like that was a perfect time to, like, okay, let's not give them the ball back. So coming out and throwing, to me, in that situation with all that momentum, because then you're stopping the clock, and now it's 2nd and 10, but it ended up being 2nd and 19, right? Or 2nd and 18, right?
19, 2nd and 19. Yes.
2nd 19, right? Because you gave up a sack. And the biggest issue has been pass protection. So, like, the thought process based on the situation, like, it's football situational, right? Based on what you said and what we all saw and felt, the energy was all on the Raiders' side.
Correct.
The last thing you want to do is give up a sack. You know what I mean? And so you come out and you take a 7-step drop, I think it was. I don't know. Once again, my point is, though, is that's when you're saying, what do we do best? We run the ball. We need to run the ball down their throats. 4-minute offense. They never get it back. We're going to go kick a field goal or score a touchdown and win the game. If you come out throwing, that kind of negates that whole mindset and that whole process of 4-minute offense and never giving the ball back. You know what I mean? Like, I have a philosophical problem with that.
Well, but I agree with that, but I would add to it, once you're in 2nd and 19, to me, the answer can't be a draw. Like, you have to recognize
exactly.
The answer to this can't just be punt. It can't be that
They
give the
gave
ball
up.
back. Exactly right.
They gave
You
up.
have one timeout left. You're asking for them to get the ball back and you to never see the ball again. The answer in that situation can't be, it's okay if we punt. You absolutely had to go down and, at worst, use up most of the clock and come away with at least a field goal attempt in that situation. Second, I agree with you.
Two timeouts, but still, your point's right. They
had wasted the one
They had wasted
the one. Yeah.
But regardless, here's the thing that pisses me off. Femi, you're exactly right. They decided to try and drop back and throw there. You have 4 minutes left with 2 timeouts. Why do you feel like you need to throw the ball when you are running it down their throat that entire half? If you go look at the numbers, just the team stat page right now, I've been staring at it throughout this whole show because I'm baffled. When you look at some of these numbers, you will be baffled as to how they lost this game. Now, unless you look at the penalty numbers, which I do think is a really important part of it, because they had 11 penalties for 109 yards. That's not acceptable. But they ran the ball for 5.6 yards per carry after only running the ball for 11 yards in the first half. You can establish the run with 4 minutes left and 2 timeouts still. You don't need to be in any kind of rush, especially in a tie game after you just got punched in the mouth. They decided instead to try and throw the ball on that first down, took the sack, which was only the 2nd sack they gave up the entire game. It's not, I mean, Max Crosby was in their face, but it's not like he was sacking them left and right. That was literally the 2nd sack that they gave up the entire game. They ate Gardner Minshew's lunch from a defensive standpoint. They won that battle as well. When you look at these numbers, it's baffling that they lost this game. I don't understand from a game situation standpoint, Femi, why they gave up in that situation. They had the game right in front of them despite being punched in the mouth. And whenever this team seems to face adversity, that's what happens. And that's, I think, the part that's so frustrating for me is that they can't seem to get themselves back up off the mat when they go down like that.
Give me 1 second. Make your trip to the game. And by the way, Roquan Smith, I think everybody agrees there is no way that they should be 0-2, but this is where they are. That's the reality of it. Can't get away from it. Make your trip to the game easy by saving the Easy Pass way for tolls. Go to driveeasymd.com. That's driveeasymd.com. So, Reeta, I'll come back to you, right? Like, walk me through the the part that KZ texted Steck and I about, like the part where all of a sudden you look up and you're 0-2, and Andrew referenced it, and you've got a trip to Dallas next week, and you've got a game against Buffalo the following week. How nervous do you start to feel about there's danger of this coming unraveled after just 2 weeks?
Yeah,
Well,
there's
I mean,
serious danger. Sorry,
Go ahead.
Rita.
go ahead.
No, Rita, go ahead, Rita. No, go, Rita. Go ahead. You got it.
No, you have to, with the schedule that they have early on, and we knew this. We knew that the first 4 or 5 games were going to be a gauntlet. You have to be concerned, right? And then you had Dallas lose really bad at home today as well. So they're also going to be a team that's going to be reeling when you go there next week. And then you got Buffalo, who's obviously 2-0 right now. I mean, I tweeted, I was like, it could be an overreaction, y'all, but it feels like possibly like somebody got to be held accountable. And does the seat get warm because of this 0-2 start? Because you were 9.5-point favorites coming into this game, which I hated to begin with. I'm big because they had the largest point spread. You know how I feel about that, Glenn. But to lose the way that you did, which really felt like a front office issue with how the offensive line has been constructed, but also a managing and coaching issue with how they dictated and went about this game, particularly in the second half, you do have to wonder, one, when do you start feeling panic? But two, when do we start having these conversations? And I know, Femi, I got to assume that, I know how, we feel about Harbs, but when do we start having hard conversations? Because it just always feels like there's a brain fart in here somewhere. But now you're behind the 8 ball. And how far more behind you get before somebody starts saying this is a problem and maybe we need to start making changes?
I mean, I think we're far from that, honestly, because what is this, his 18th year, 17th year with the Ravens? Yeah, I think we're far from that, especially based on what happened last year. I mean, just being honest with you, I think that it would have to, like, we'd have to get to like week 8, 9, 10 and be like, damn, the wheels fell off quick. You know what I mean? I just don't. I'm not there, and I'm not even close to that. That's not even a conversation for me. But we can have hypotheticals all day long. I'm just saying that, like, I'm not close to that yet. But I know what you're saying. Like, if this continues to snowball in a negative way,
right?
I think the NFL is demanding in a lot of ways, and it's always going to be about what have you done for me lately. You know what I mean? It's never going to be about what you did in the past. Although I like to take a macro picture view and not get too prisoner of the moment. But based on what happened today, and kind of like the cautious optimism I had after going to KC and really like going toe to toe with the heavyweight champ, I felt like, okay, this is a younger team with new guys and a new offensive line and a new coordinator. Like, man, they really went in there and showed me something. To have that, I think I'm just taken aback by the regression. Like, to me, I'm just like, damn, because I think Stecca's right. Like, I bet if you just look at the numbers on a piece of paper, you'd probably be like, oh, I know who won this game. I'm just looking at the paper. Don't look at the final score. Just look at this piece of paper right here. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, I think 75% of the damage was self-inflicted. I do. 75% of it was 80, maybe 80. I'm leaving a little bit on the rest because there's a couple penalties there that they called that had an effect on the outcome still. You know what I mean? Like that Brandon Stevens penalty to me is bonkers. And the roughing the face mask penalty, that's bonkers too. Like I just those penalties affected the outcome. And I don't want to be that person. Penalties, screaming penalties and conspiracies. Like, I don't want to be that person. I'm not that person. But today, when I just, I just had problems all across the board today.
11 for 109 versus 3 for 15 in terms of the penalties. Yeah. Like that, Femi, you would know this better than any of us here. Does that fall on discipline from a coaching standpoint, or is that on the players for like not having their heads like? Because I get what you're saying. The face mask was wrong, but also who was it? Was it Owe Ojabo? Sorry, that fell on Minshew late.
Yeah,
like that kind of washes out for me. Like it's a 15-yarder regardless of what they call there. I agree with you that it was no face mask, but like, and the Stevens one, I agree with you. I thought it was OPI, not defensive pass interference, but like, even if you take a couple of those away, it's still too many penalties, and it's an undisciplined thing that this team like has really got to get over.
Yeah, I think it started for me in the AFC Championship game last year. Like from that to now, there's a straight line between the number of penalties that have been called, and yes, are some of them just terrible calls? Absolutely. Does it feel like we're being singled out a little bit? Yes, but 75% of them are actually penalties. Like they are penalties. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and yes, are they at inopportune times that are affecting the scoreboard? Absolutely, I agree with that too. I don't think the refs or the league have any issues with the Ravens per se. I just think that they're human and they make mistakes. And unfortunately, when you're penalty prone right now, like we are, and then they're adding to the problem, it just feels like it's all bad. You know what I mean? So that's just kind of my analysis on the
penalties. By the way, I agree. I'm still flummoxed by the one on Brandon Stevens. I mean, flummoxed by it. Like I have zero idea how to make sense of that.
If anything, it was OPI.
You know? Yeah, I mean, other than to say, like, if somebody would say, "Hey,"
I saw it as OPI as well.
Yeah, like somebody will say, "Hey, by letter of the law, he made some contact." Well, way before the ball it had nothing to do with the impact of the play. I'm flummoxed by that call. But to the point, right? Like this, it does go back to a bigger topic that we've had a lot. First of all, I'll remind everybody the Mars Maryland 5-Star is the place to be in October. Visit maryland5star.us for more info and tickets. That's Maryland 5-Star with a number 5. We talk about this a lot. The Ravens play bully ball really well. But if there is a common theme that we could bring up to the last couple of years, even as they've had success, it doesn't feel like things go well when things go off script. They play really well as front runners. When things are going well, they're clicking, they make less mistakes. The adversity, when things aren't going your way, what happens then? How do you handle those moments? That has felt like a more consistent issue. And to the point, when all of a sudden the Raiders are invited back into the football game, however they got there, you're still in a place where you're in a tie game at home with the ball, and there's no business to losing that game no matter what the path was to getting there. And I think that, if I was looking for a broader statement to make, continues to be an issue for me, which is when things aren't going your way, what happens and why does it tend to look like panic or just forgetting little things or making inexcusable mistakes in those moments?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I know that, and I'm just gonna, your analysis from a macro perspective is spot freaking on, dude. I have nothing to take away from that. I think that the part that is like when I'm looking forward into the future, there's two things that I'm seeing with specificity that need to be addressed. I don't care if the Ravens if Lamar only got sacked twice today. Was it only 2 sacks? How many pressures? How many tackles for a loss? How many times were running backs hit in the backfield? Yep. How many times were they hit before they even got 1 yard? Like Derrick Henry's getting hit like he's back in Tennessee.
Yep.
Like if I'm just watching the game and I don't know anything, this offensive line is not playing well. They're not.
So there were 5 TFLs for the record.
Okay.
But here's my problem though. 4 of those 5 were from one dude, and both the sacks were from one dude. And here's the coming into this game, there are 2 dudes, maybe 2.5 if you like we said. Maybe we want to include Bowers in that. 2 dudes killed them in this game. Like, where's the game planning?
Devontae Adams killed them too.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's those 2 dudes. It's Max
Crosby and Adams. Yeah.
Like, those are the 2 dudes that killed
my bad.
them.
I thought you said Bowers, dude. Sorry,
well, I'm saying Bowers is like, I'm going to give him half credit because he did have 9 catches.
Oh, hey, dude, he's really good, man.
He had 9 catches for 90. When you look at the stats, he had 9 catches for 98 yards. Adams had 9 catches for 110 and a touchdown. Like, Gardner Minshew threw for 276 and 208 of it were to those 2 guys. And then Crosby had 4 of the 5 TFLs and both the sacks. Like, game plan around the guys that can hurt you.
Thank you.
They should have been shipping Crosby when he went to the airport in Vegas.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And this is the thing. And this is the thing. This is the other thing. And this is the other part of the thing that I was going to mention. So I talked about the offensive line, right? To me, that's not something that gets resolved in 1 or 2 weeks, in my opinion. I've played a little bit of football. I've watched offensive lines come together and gel. It doesn't, and you lost Joe D too. RIP to Joe D. Like, he was an integral emotional teacher that these guys rallied around. And I'm not saying that the new offensive line coach isn't good. It's a connection thing, right? So you're dealing with a little bit of loss and trauma around that. You're looking at a developmental component with these guys. And then on top of it, on the defensive side, you have a young new coordinator, and Kyle Hamilton is not looking like Kyle Hamilton to me. Like for Adafe Owe is the only guy that I can think of right now that's looking special. Like when I'm watching these games, he looks like he is matured and he's going to win his pass rushes. I can't wait to see what his PFF is for this week. But Roquan doesn't look like Roquan to me right now. Kyle doesn't look like Kyle to me right now. Van Noy made some plays, but when it's all said and done, they gave up 27 points in Kansas City, and they gave up 26 points today at home. I don't recall any time last year where they gave up high 20s points in back-to-back games, and it looked and felt like this. Now, maybe it happened, and I'm just not remembering right now, but in this moment right now, I just feel like there's a lot of growth that has to happen in a very short amount of time, and that's where my concern is.
I think the crazy part to me too, Reeta, you brought up Ben Cleveland earlier, because like I know that's what everybody's going to say is the immediate response, but like if Ben Cleveland's not playing already, how bad is Ben Cleveland? And
why is he still there if that's the case?
Like that's the part that like is it possible that Ben Cleveland could be better than Daniel Faalele because we think the bar is so low for Daniel Faalele? Sure, it's totally possible. But the fact that Ben Cleveland's been around for this long, they've known Ben Cleveland, and they've decided not to play him makes me really apprehensive about the thought that it's just immediately going to be better. And I get that can be complicated. And Femi, I'm not obtuse. Like, I know there are reasons why someone might not be given opportunities that go beyond just simply meritocracy, but I can't imagine spitting in your own face that much to say, hey, we don't have someone that can play at this level, but we're just going to throw them out there anyway because we refuse to play Ben Cleveland, who we know could be that good, but we just don't like something about them. Like, it's mind-boggling to me that the answer might be that you really don't have a qualified player and you kind of have no choice but to ride it out for as long as you can or hope to I don't know, at some point, just go strengthen numbers. Just keep signing street guys until you find someone who's capable of doing it.
Yeah, this reminds me of the last time we lost to the Raiders in Las Vegas. You know what I mean? Like Lamar was running for his life in that game. O-line didn't protect him.
We call that the Alejandro Villanueva game. We call that the what in the ever-loving F was this thought process.
Yeah. That this is feeling a little bit like that right now. This is the thing. What ends up happening sometimes with mistakes is that it becomes musical chairs. It's this guy one play, it's that guy another play, then it's this guy the next play, and then it's like it starts to move around. You know what I mean? And everyone is kind of taking their fair share of making mistakes, and it just feels like it never really gels because there's no group of men on a field that need to be more cohesive than your offensive line, right? Your five guys understanding pass protection, run blocking with ancillary support from tight ends, sometimes receivers, and occasionally a fullback or a running back that's there to support. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it is. And if you don't do that, it doesn't matter how many good receivers you have. It doesn't matter how good your quarterback is. It mutes all of it. There's nothing that kills talent more than a non-cohesive offensive line that's learning but isn't quite there yet. This is a bunch of young guys, right? Like that's the concern. And I keep saying the same thing over and over again, but I can't get it out of my head because I'm just a little bit. I'm looking at all these different teams. I'm watching all these different games. I watched the Niners last week, even though they lost to Minnesota today. Minnesota's a good team. Minnesota's tough at home. I watched the Jets win today. But I just feel like there's a bit of a development and a change in the Ravens that's a little more dramatic than other teams.
Yep.
Does that make sense? It's the turnover, like the guys that you lost on the offensive line, those were older seasoned veteran guys, and they weren't perfect, but guess what? They blocked their asses off last year.
Yes, they did.
You know what I mean? And so I just don't know how we can accelerate that learning curve to get to a place where you can beat Dallas and beat Buffalo, or at least feel like you're going to be able to compete against those two teams. Now, Dallas went out there today, and I don't know what they were doing, but Buffalo looks dangerous right now.
Sure. I completely get.
What's the difference between, like, the play calling? I don't think was a huge issue today. They got to run the ball especially in that third quarter. Like, they figured it out. They ran the ball well.
It did seem like it took a while though, Andrew. Like look, everything adds up to it. Like, they were sluggish in the first half, and I think it is fair to question why they didn't try to get to the outside with Derrick Henry in the first half. Why did it take until halftime to try to get to the outside?
But if we're talking about an offensive line that's trying to learn on the go, learn on the fly, gel, young guys, they're all trying to, like, and maybe the problem is that you need to help out with a running back or leaving a tight end in and, like, doing those kinds of things to help them out. Why aren't we seeing that? Like, that's what I'm confused by, because why I get that you have, like, a superstar quarterback who can make some things happen, and he, by the way, has made a lot of things happen through 2 games, but, like, why put all that pressure on him in the passing game when you have the option to help this? It feels like there's no help. It feels like they've just got these 3 new starters, and also they're still using a rotation, which I don't know how many other NFL teams do that on a consistent basis the way that the Ravens have. It feels to me like, why not help them out a little bit? Why not, like, help guide them along rather than just, this feels like they've been throwing them to the wolves and being like, I don't know, figure it out, guys.
Figure it out. Yep.
And that doesn't seem like a good plan to me.
Or I would add, or game plan for your deficiencies. And I think that goes back to the question of why it took until the second half to get Derrick Henry to the outside. Like, your
We're saying the same thing, though. The deficiency is the youth and the inexperience on the offensive line.
There's the option to the point of coming in and chipping and helping that way. But or do you just go into a game and say, we're not very good at this. We can't assume that we're just going to be able to run the ball in the middle of the field coming out, because nothing that we have seen so far would suggest that we're capable of running the ball in the middle of the field.
Maybe that was a halftime adjustment. Like, I don't know. I'll look. I don't want to credit John Harbaugh for a lot of things after this game, because I think he, like, was really bad in a lot of ways. Especially, I do want to harp on the time management, the challenge management. It's so bad. Like, they could have had an extra shot, not only at the end of the game with an extra timeout, but at the end of the first half with an extra timeout at the end zone. That kind of stuff bites you in the butt when it's consistent like this. But maybe I can give him credit for, they went in and said, here's some adjustments we can make. Let's try to do this to get the run game going. And they did. That third quarter was incredible. Derrick Henry was running all over them in the third quarter.
Guys, the turning point in the game, do we all agree, or is it just me that thinks this? The interception changed the whole game.
I heard you say that, and I don't really agree.
Why? Think about what happened, Andrew. Think about what happened right after that. They went and scored right after that. The Ravens had a 10-point lead. Right? They're moving the ball. So let's go back further. Ravens come out in the second half, and the game started, in my opinion. I'm sitting here with my girlfriend talking. We're like, oh, the game has started now. The Ravens go down. They score a touchdown. They get the Raiders to punt. They get the ball back. They can go up 17 now. But they turn the ball over on their side of the 50-yard line. The Raiders go down and score. It changed the whole game. Like, I'm not even going to debate that. From that point on, they built momentum. From that point on, it got sideways the whole time. They had a chance to put their throat there. No matter what happened in the first half, they come out in the third quarter and they are taking the game over. And that and by the way, that's not Lamar's fault. It's probably not even Bates' fault. It was a good play by the DB.
Bennett made an incredible play.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not putting blame on anybody on the Ravens. I'm just saying that they needed to make a play, and they made a play. And that play, and it does not negate what you're saying, Stecca, about the fact that, maybe it was you that said it, Glenn, that we are great front runners, bully ball, things are going good, kick your ass and never look back. Yes, absolutely. But when there's a little bit of a issue or concern, do we rise? I mean, not my words, your words. What I'm saying is that if that's true, if you believe that, that's exactly what happened. Actually, that's literally exactly. But here's the reason,
Femi. They had it. You're right. They came out in the second half. They took a 10-point lead. They actually got the Raiders to turn it over on downs, and then got the ball back. Then the interception happened. They come back, cut the lead back to 3. The Ravens went after they got that touchdown to cut the lead to 3. The Ravens went right back down the field in a 9-play drive and push the lead back up to 10 after the interception.
So listen, both things can be true, Andrew. Both things can be true. My point is that if you don't turn that ball over, maybe you go up by 17. You basically let them back in the game. You gave them life at that point. Is my point.
I hear
like,
you.
You know what I'm saying?
Just,
so what I'm saying is, don't think about it black and white. Think about it in
Yeah.
degrees. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't turn the ball over there, or they don't make that play, I think the game is probably going to start to become one of those games that we know and love.
It's probably yeah.
Exactly. You know what I mean? That's
and by the way,
I'm trying to
I
make.
get what you're saying, and I'm fine with them just continuing to ram it down their throat and run the ball in that third quarter, because that's what they were doing well.
But they got an interception on a pass play.
I know. I'm agreeing.
But that's my
point.
Like,
I get that.
But that's my point, though. You could just, you were already running the ball down their throat. And what I'm saying is that it's easy for me to sit here after the fact and say, like, I wish you just ran the ball down their throat, because you just did it. Like, I'm not saying, like, does that mean you never throw the ball again? No, it doesn't mean that. All I'm saying is that I feel like this team they're still trying to find their way. You're up by 10. You're in the middle of the field, basically. Run the ball. Just run the ball. You know what I mean? Like, let's just run it down their throat like you did the possession before. And let the chips fall where they fall. But once again, this is me looking at the game after it's already happened, and maybe that's not fair.
So, Femi, to the point where both things can be true, I understand what you're saying. Actually, first, let me tell you, to remind you that you can experience the thrill of live betting with the Green Turtle Bet Park Sportsbooks in Towson and Canton. Green Turtle Sportsbooks, the ultimate destination for game day excitement and in-person betting. After the pick, they gave up 4 scoring drives to a team that was one-dimensional, that couldn't and wasn't even trying to run the football. 4 scoring drives to a team that could only throw the ball. And that's I do think the pick was big, right? Like, momentum-wise, I think it was a huge play. But, like, my God, how does that happen? How do you give up 4 scoring drives when a team can't run past? You know what they're doing, and you can't stop it.
But that's my point, though, Glenn. Where's Kyle Hamilton? Where's that all-pro, first-team all-pro guy blitzing from the secondary, creating havoc all over the field? Where's that? And I don't think it's him. I think it's him, not his number not being called. Like, he's lining up. Like, look, maybe I'm totally wrong. I just feel like he's lining up at safety and playing safety. Like, I don't see him doing all the things he was doing a year ago.
And if that's the case, it's not making a difference covering tight ends, right? Like, if there's one thing that you would say, hey,
his number one asset is being a Swiss Army knife, right? Like, lining him up at linebacker, lining him up as a DB, lining him up in the nickel, lining him up in the box, lining him up in two deep zone. Like, putting him all over the field is what makes him special, right?
Is the absence of the rookie corner having to do with that? Like, is that?
I mean,
did that play a factor?
We didn't have him last year. You know what I mean? So I'm talking right now. I'm talking right now about the way that Kyle Hamilton is. Maybe it does, Andrew. Maybe when Nate comes back, maybe Kyle's allowed to do what Kyle does.
Or our friend Arthur Millette is in this conversation too, who also obviously is the guy that you would use the most in a slot corner situation if he's healthy and on the field. And it's totally plausible, and I have to go back and look at the snaps to see if that's how it's worked out, but they've chosen to use Kyle more in the slot corner without having Arthur Millette on the field. That doesn't mean that it's
let him play safety and just line him up at safety. I think that's what I look. Once again, I'm going to be real with you. I don't have the all 22 view, and I'm not locked in on Kyle Hamilton. Like, my natural instinct is to look at the offense, right? Like, I'm asking questions because I don't have all the answers. I'll probably have a lot more answers tomorrow after I have a chance to look at things and do some, a little bit of discovery on, like, where people were aligned and what the kind of philosophical approach was to the game. But yeah, the Raiders can't run the ball. And that's what I said. What was the first thing I said when I came on? Like, Odafe Owe was on the sideline on critical downs to me, third downs. You know what I mean? Where I think, like, his energy, I'm saying it because I feel like he is the guy that I'm looking at, like, that dude's standing out. He's the guy that's standing out, and Kyle Vinoy is too, right? There were times I want to see both of them out there together. That's what I want to see, especially critical third downs in the second half. Now, it's not for me to count pitches and wonder how many pitches these guys have thrown, and i.e. how many plays they've had. I'm not counting those, and I'm sure there is somebody on the Ravens sideline doing that. And maybe based on usage, this is the way that they were going to play. But I think sometimes you got to throw that shit out the window and be like, hey, this game is kind of slipping away from us, and we need our playmakers out there. And if they need to play an extra 5 plays, so be it. My 2 cents on that.
No, Femi, I think the reason I asked the question about Millette too is I have not seen, and you guys can tell me, not looking at snap counts, not looking at all 22, I couldn't tell you what cornerback not named Marlon Humphrey or Brandon Stevens was on the field today. I just don't remember seeing it, which is why my gut tells me that Kyle Hamilton has been being asked to play slot corner a little bit more, just because I swear to God I can't remember, and we know that it was only 17 snaps for Wiggins last week, so I don't know who else they have been asking to defend a third receiver, and I think that could be part of the problem. But again, that doesn't make any of it okay. I'm not telling you that that's absolving of it. I don't think that's the appropriate way to use Kyle Hamilton at all. Like, I just don't think that's the case. A couple of things. One, make your trip to the game easy by saving the Easy Pass waive for tolls. Go to driveeasymd.com. That's driveeasymd.com in order to find out more. I had a couple other notes that I just wanted to run by, and then I'm going to try to get to some comments from Facebook. One, somebody brought up the rotation. I think a lot of people confused by late in the second half. We see Roger Rosengarten go in at right tackle, and it seemed like they got some things going with Roger Rosengarten in there. And then to start the second half, Pat McCary was right back in at right tackle. Is perhaps the solution to the right guard situation to say it's time to let Roger Rosengarten, who they clearly thought highly of when they drafted him, sink or swim at tackle, and say McCary is going to have to play right guard?
This feels like square pegs, round holes, like puzzle pieces that don't fit. Like this feels like such gross mismanagement, and that's why I brought up the chipping thing earlier. Like they need help. They don't have 6 or 7 offensive linemen that are qualified, let alone 5. Like it feels like they grossly underestimated, or I guess overestimated, their capability.
How though? That's the part I don't think I understand. Like I don't even understand how we've been hearing about how this is going to be, a work in progress and all of these things. I'm yelling for them to chip in the first quarter, Andrew. I'm literally in the first quarter like Max Crosby this is going to be him all day long. It's not going to stop. So you either gotta help get somebody to help with him, or, go right at him, with a couple times they did when they threw the ball, try to throw the ball, over his head or whatever. But you guys dealt with Chris Jones in week 1. Then you dealt with Crosby in week 2. Now you got Micah Parsons.
Micah Parsons is coming.
Now you got Micah Parsons. So if they don't do this if they haven't learned their lesson now, how am I to assume that the lesson is going to get learned, and somehow, some way they're going to be like, oh, well, maybe it's a good idea we start getting somebody to go chip or do, like, something got to change here, because it ain't working. This is 3 weeks in a row that you're going to play a very dominant defensive guy, and 2 weeks. So this is not, you knew this going into this game, how good of a player Max Crosby was. And you did nothing, in my opinion, to dissolve him of it. Nothing.
Let me go to some of these comments and we'll respond to a few of them. From Lewis, is any of the inconsistency due to not playing in the preseason? Reeta, this is something I know that you've been talking about. I'm not going to change my mind on it, but even if, oh, that's a beautiful shot. We got to figure out a better way to pull the video, the screen cap of the comments, Griffin, instead of that being the shot that I get. Is there anything to be said about that, Femi? I'll start with you.
I mean, the approach to the preseason is not changing. You know what I mean? Like it just is what it is. I mean, unless I know different coaches and different front offices have different philosophies. I don't think we can put today's loss on the preseason. I think today's loss is about a bunch of young guys that are trying to figure it out. Because I bet you if you had the 3 guys that you got rid of out there, I think it looks a lot different today than it looked today, and it probably looks different than it looked last week as well.
Is there anything to be saying that perhaps uniquely this year they should have had the 5 offensive linemen on the field together in the preseason for at least some time?
I think it would have been beneficial for sure. Okay. They didn't have Ronnie Stanley, and they didn't have who else didn't who else wasn't out there? Ronnie Stanley didn't play.
Linderbaum.
Linderbaum.
Yep.
Yeah, but I mean, do you think So you have to ask yourself the question.
Right. It's the trade-off of the risk. I like this is.
But I mean, but I don't think Linderbaum and Ronnie being out there is going to accelerate. I mean, okay. The question is, does exposing Linderbaum and Stanley to an issue during the preseason accelerate the learning curve for the other three guys by playing in the preseason? I don't know if it does.
I don't know either. Yeah, I don't know either, right? I really don't. And I agree with you that it's not going to change the philosophy, and running the risk of losing players is just not something that they're going to do. And I probably tend to agree that no matter what, I don't think they should do it. And I'm not going to change on that. All of you, and I'm going to revisit something that came up earlier because Reeta brought it up and then Femi responded, and I'll say it too. Everyone who just wants to feel better about themselves by saying, this is John Harbaugh's fault. Feel better about yourself. Say it until it makes you sleep better at night. The point that Femi made is the only one that really matters, and it's why I'm not going to do an hour-long show as much as KZ would enjoy it, where all we say is the coach is going to get fired. Because that's not going to happen.
No, it's not happening.
Comical that's what you would want a post-game show to be about. It's not happening. Now, 1,000%. The wheels completely come off. Like, they go lose in Dallas, lose to Buffalo. They're sitting at 2-9 at some point. 1,000%. At that point, the conversation can start happening. But the notion that a NFL team is going to fire their head coach after 2 weeks in the season is just saying, I'm the dumbest human being alive. So if you want us to just sit here and say, it's all Harbaugh's fault, it's all Harbaugh's fault, great. Who's going to be the coach of the team next week?
Right.
So we're going to try to have an educated conversation and discuss relevant topics related to the football team. And if all you're capable in your brain of doing is saying this is all about John Harbaugh, then say it. Say it as much as you want to say it. But it's not going to change anything about the reality of the football team. There will come a date where if we're doing more of these shows this season, that's going to be what we're talking about. It ain't today. And it's nonsense to think that that's going to be today. It's as dumb gets. It's just you pulling your pants down and letting everyone see your ass because you're obsessed with letting everyone see how stupid you are. That's all I can give you.
In full defense, KZ has not said anything about getting Coach Harbaugh fired this year, right? That's true. He has not said
not
that.
Yet. Not yet.
But
no.
But let me say this. In the essence, and well said, by the way, and in the essence of that objective, Glenn, the reason why, first of all, I think it's nonsensical. It's not going to happen, and I think he's earned a little bit more respect than that. That's where I'm at. And if the wheels completely fall off, then let's have that conversation in week 8, 7, or 9. Okay,
100%.
Open to it then. And yes, and we're here to talk about decision making. So were those challenges good decisions? No, they weren't good decisions. But that has nothing to do. But those are micro decisions in a football game that were probably a little more emotional than they should have been. But that's just us critiquing the game itself. That's what we're talking about. The other thing that I've been critiquing, which I think we all agree with, is the evolution and the cohesion of the offensive line, which is a problem, and the usage and the approach on how Kyle Hamilton, and for me, the defensive play calling. Zach hasn't had enough time. It's his second week, and I want to give him that space and time to learn and figure it out.
By the way, remember how the first 2 weeks went for Mike McDonald as defensive coordinator? Not just not good. Utterly the guy that you all wanted to run John Harbaugh out before was the guy who, after 2 weeks, you wanted to run out.
Yeah.
After that Miami game, you wanted him burned in the street. Sorry.
Yeah, so no, it's all good. So my point is that I'm trying to make, and I hope it's coming across that way, I'm trying to be an analyst, asking constructive questions, putting out ideas and thoughts about where the improvements can be made and when we'll see the return on that. That's what I'm asking. You know what I mean? And so to go back to my original thesis, which is I was cautiously optimistic about what I saw in Kansas City because I think KC is the heavyweight champ. And based on the hardware that they won the Super Bowl last year. We went into their house and played them to the final play of the game, which I left ecstatic about. The other question that I have is, And Isaiah almost had a hell of a catch on that sideline with like what,
Man,
1
that was
second left.
close.
I mean,
Yeah.
that was that's a field goal right there if he catches that. So back-to-back weeks, he almost pulls a rabbit out of his hat. You know what I mean? But I wanted more of Likely today. That's another thing we haven't talked about. I
Sure.
wanted more
Sure.
of him today. We didn't get enough Likely today, in my opinion.
Sure.
I still think that Mark is coming along, and maybe Mark will become the Mark Andrews that we all know and love. I still think he's probably recovering, like I said last week. And I don't know this for a fact. This is just me thinking about what he's been through in the last, 9 months. I'm thinking about his leg. I'm thinking about his mental, emotional, physical, spiritual health. Maybe he's on the mend, and maybe he's going to get back to who we know and love. But Isaiah Likely is a Pro Bowl caliber player right now. And I'm wondering what the thought process was behind his usage today and how he was used today. When he had the ball in his hand, he was doing Isaiah Likely type things. But I just don't think he had the ball in his hands enough. What say you about that?
I don't disagree at all. I think we saw it when they purposely started to throw him in the flat. Like I agree. Isaiah Likely is a star, and it should be the type of thing where you are designing plays with the entire purpose of the play being we need the ball in Isaiah Likely's hands to let him go do crazy things. 1000%. I couldn't agree any more about that. To go back to it, the two challenges. The one, a lot of people are saying that was just going to be a timeout anyway ahead of a third down play. And you can say, sure, if you're going to call timeout anyway, particularly with the new rule, as they have alluded to on the broadcast, that there's not the same penalty for you getting a challenge wrong, then maybe you challenge it anyway. But I think you saw exactly why you don't do that with what happened on the second one. The second one, I didn't have the clearest view of by the time they had to throw. Now, I think they should have had a clearer view of it where they are, but I'll acknowledge, unlike the first one, we all knew before they threw the flag, do not challenge that. You're wrong, right? Like, don't do it. The second one, and Zay didn't even get up. We remember on the first one, Zay didn't even attempt to suggest that he caught the football. He was trying to do the sly thing where he was hoping the refs didn't notice that the ball hit the ground. But like once they called it incomplete, he wasn't screaming over to the sideline.
Oh, I thought he was. I thought that was.
He
I
made
thought that was
one.
Almost,
He made one jet. He made one gesture, right, to look. Let's see it. That was what he said. Let's see it.
To me, the reason that first one got called was because they were like almost dilly-dallying so much that the play clock had gotten down to like 10 or 11 seconds, and they didn't have they weren't ready to go.
And that's part of that part of it. Like, there's no excuse to me of, hey, you're gonna have to call timeout anyway. No, you got to be ready to go play football.
I agree.
Like, these timeouts are too valuable, and to the point, the challenge can still end up being too valuable, because I really did. The second one, there was one particular angle that they showed where it did look like his feet were off the ground. Like, it did look like that for a second on one particular angle. Now, I don't know what they had seen, and you would have liked to have think that they have seen enough angles to know that it was wrong. But on one particular angle, it did look like his feet had come off the ground in the process of making the catch.
Regardless of the challenges being valuable, though, the timeouts, both at the end of the first half and the game, that extra timeout on both ends of the clock are way more valuable than the challenges.
If John Harbaugh's answer is he thinks it was a leverage play, I mean, how many plays during the course of a game are a leverage play? The answer isn't that, like, we hope that we get it right because of a leverage play. If it's a leverage play and you know that it didn't get called correctly, then you challenge it. But it is entering into theater of the absurd that this process isn't leading them definitively knowing the answer and going to a replay with anything other than just hoping that maybe what happened isn't what happened, and that being worth risking a timeout over. Like that, I don't know enough about the entire operation to know how we're getting there. Like, are they somehow being denied the quick access to video to just go to these things with hope and not knowledge?
Can I yes and you with the Harbaugh thing that you brought up a few minutes ago? Because I agree with everything you said, and like there is you brought up theater of the absurd. Like, it is absurd for people to continually call for his job because, I mean, the Ravens are just not that team. Like, the Ravens are
Andrew, say it more than that. No one's that team. No one is firing their wildly successful coach that just went to the AFC Championship game after week 2. It's not the Ravens aren't that type of team. It's that anyone thinking that anyone would ever do that is the dumbest human being alive.
I'm going to yes and you again. Yes, and there is, look, when it comes to like local Baltimore stuff, I listen to you. I think you know that. And that's because of this reason. Like because you want to have a level-headed I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. Like I'm not telling you anything you don't know. You want to have a reasonable, level-headed conversation about these things, and that's the reason I listen to you. I don't listen to any other local Baltimore crap. I listen to you because of that reason. From a national standpoint though, there is very much a narrative that the Ravens are a team that will blow a double-digit or at least 2-score lead, and they've done it a hell of a lot in the last.
What is it? Is it 10 times in the last 5 years, which is the most in the NFL?
They've blown a lot of these. I mean, and again, they blew a 10-point lead twice in this game against lesser opposition. Hell, we talked you talked about it earlier in the week. Gardner Minshew did this very thing with the Indianapolis Colts 1 year ago. Went into Baltimore as a near double-digit underdog and went in and beat them outright. They lose these games a lot, and that is where this, and I'm saying it's a narrative nationally. Like it is a thing. He's gotten this reputation for having a team that blows it a lot. And this is their first 0-2 start now in 9 years, since 2015. Like the snowball can grow here. And I'm not, this is not me. I'm, like I said, I'm yes-anding because everything you're saying is right. It's absurd to call for his job. But from a narrative standpoint, it ain't pretty. And the challenge stuff, the timeout stuff, the everything we've been talking about now for an hour plus, the lack of, what are they doing with the offensive line? Like all of these different things are continual issues that continue to be a thing.
I know you're saying it's yes and I just think it's two separate conversations. If anybody was on here saying, I think John Harbaugh had a bang up day today, then I think that we would be doing a disservice. He didn't.
He's
I mean,
number one.
You don't think John Harbaugh had a bang up day today, correct?
I mean, in regard to what, like a great day?
Yeah. You think he had a great day? No.
No, definitely.
None of us
not.
have said that.
Yeah,
None of us
yeah.
have said that we think John Harbaugh had a great day today. It's that we're wasting breath with this. Andrew, everything you said is right. There's a time for that. Ken wants to get in. Let me allow Ken. Sorry.
No, and you think I'm going to get in a different way, but Thursday we talked about this, Glenn. When we do our picks, we talked about this and we said, and it was beyond the double, the 9.5 point spread. It's just that we have seen these games, and what was it? 10 out of the 10 in the last 5 years,
it's
or
in
whatever
5
it is.
years. It's something. It's like hang on.
Griffin
just put the stat up. Nine.
Nine.
Thank you.
We've just seen. We talked about this, and we had this feeling about this game that's like, yeah, the Ravens should win, should beat this team because they're inferior to the Ravens. But it seems like once or twice a year, they have this against these teams, and you go back to the Indianapolis game and things like that, where they had the game won, this double-digit thing, and I understand the whole momentum thing, but I just and I wanted to ask this of Femi. It's like, you're running the ball well, and I go back to that 4-minute thing. It's like, but that takes me back to the championship game. It's like, how don't you realize? Like, I haven't been on an NFL sideline. You have. Like, what is the mechanism to let the coaches know, hey, we're averaging 5 yards a carry this half. We have to go win this game. Let's continue to do what we're doing well. Like, how is that communication done? Because when John Harbaugh says something like he thought he challenged that the Adams catch because it was a high leverage moment. I don't know what that means. That's coach speak to me. I have no idea what that means.
It means that it's a play that can change the complexion of a game, and it could. But there's 5 or 6 of those every game.
I think there's more than that.
I think it depends on the game, but I think that explosive plays, which are 20 plays of 20 yards or more, I think there's like 5 a game. I would call that a high leverage play. Now, things don't have to be 20-yard explosive plays to be high leverage. It could be based on time remaining. It could be a penalty. It could be a 3rd and 1, right? Those are all high leverage plays as well, right? So I think the definition is a little broader. So you're probably right. Let's say maybe 10 plays are high leverage plays in a game. But in regard to KZ's question, I think everybody knows the information, but I think what you have to think about is that the coordinator and the head coach have a direct line, right? And then some of the assistant coaches and the head coach and the coordinator have a direct line. But ultimately, you're not mid play talking to the coordinator all the time. Like, you're letting the coordinator do his job. Like, you trust him to make the decisions that need to be made, and maybe you plant a seed and say, hey, I really want us to run the ball in this series, or I really want to do this, or I don't want you to do that, or you know what I mean? But in the flow of a game, these are some of the best coaches on the planet. And Coach Harbaugh, from what I've seen, is not a micromanager. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that gives you any peace, KZ. I don't know if that helps answer your question, but averaging
I just
5.6 yards a carry, and saying that, like, I saw what you saw. Like, I came on here and I basically said, like, I wish they just committed to just like one of those, like, we're just going to run the ball here. Like, we're up by 10, we have the ball. We're just going to run and not throw the ball on first down. I mean, I agree with that.
But that's that, and you answered my question, because my question was, like, in that situation, does Harbaugh say to Moncton, hey, we got to run the ball here. We got to take time off the clock. We're doing it well. We're on a roll. We got some momentum with running the ball. Let's continue to run the ball. Or does he just say nothing and trust his offensive coordinator?
I think both are true. I think both. One doesn't negate the other. There are going to be situations where he says, this is what we're doing. Other times he's going to let him go do his thing. And once again, like, when we say run the ball, I don't mean run the ball 30 times in a row. I mean, establish the run, sprinkle in some play action passes, run a couple screens here and there, but definitely lean on the run. I personally, I'm looking, and maybe one of you have it. The interception, was that on first down or was that on second down? It was either first or second down.
It was on first down. So that drive was only 3 plays, but they had gotten a 15-yard first down on first down to start the drive. Then they got a Derrick Henry run up the middle for 4 yards.
It was second down.
Second and
second
6.
down. Second and 6 was the
and then came the interception. So, but it came after a first down and a 4-yard run. So it's like they were moving. They moved the ball on 2 straight plays, and then the interception came.
Yeah, so I felt like I'd have a better argument if it was a first down throw. You know what I mean? I think I'd have a better argument. You know what I mean? But based on down and distance, I guess that was just a good play by the defense. Like, that's going to happen sometimes. It wasn't anyone's fault necessarily, but the momentum, in my opinion, that's the play that, for me, that changed everything. In my opinion, like, that's just how I feel about it.
And I went and looked up the challenge on the Davante Adams catch where in the second half too, because I was curious about, like, high leverage, like, what's high leverage there. So on that drive that came on a field goal drive for the Raiders, they had just gotten a first down with a 26-yard play to Davante Adams, and then that was a 30-yard play the very next play on 1st and 10. So what's the high leverage?
I think he put him in the red zone, though. I think that ball ended up at that's why.
I understand, but it's not like it was a 3rd and 6. Like,
Andrew, look, you don't have to agree, man. You can just say,
no,
hey, I don't agree.
I hear you.
You know what I mean?
It's
all good. It's all good.
I agree with KZ in the sense that that's coach speak to me, like the high leverage thing.
No, I don't think that's coach speak. I think I hear all kinds of people in all kinds of different sports talk about high leverage plays. The same thing with, you have your closer in the 9th inning with 2 outs and full count. Like, it's a high leverage in that situation. That's not coach speak to me. That's normal speak. I just don't agree with that. And yes, in my opinion, is it possible? First of all, it was a high leverage play because it was an explosive play that put the ball inside the 10-yard line. So if you're hoping that play is going to get turned over, was it probable? No, it was not probable based on what I saw that play was going to get turned over. But I understand what he's saying. The question is do you agree? The rest of it is nonsensical. We don't need to talk about all the coach speaking. Do you agree with the flag being thrown and having it reviewed? I personally don't. I thought there was about zero chance, from what I saw, that was going to be turned over, regardless of what was said before and what was said after. To me, the play was going to stand, and that was it. But maybe he was hoping on something he saw or he was told, and I'm not privy to that maybe the chance was greater than what we saw. I'm just trying to, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt.
And I'd like to know more about that operation, because I think when we see that he's 2 for his last 8 on challenges, it seems like there might be a problem with the operation.
I want my timeout in that spot with my quarterback maybe having to go win the game at the end.
That part is there too, 100%.
Fun
times.
Sorry. Go ahead, Glenn.
No, you're good, Femi. It's one of those weeks, man. It's just one of those weeks. Hopefully it'll be different next week. Hopefully that'll be the case. A Project Game Day has been made possible by 1-800-GAMBLER. No cost treatment now available for anyone wanting help with a gambling problem. We've been at it for over an hour, and like everybody else, we're just spinning wheels because we're frustrated too. Like, it's the way it goes. Everybody's frustrated. Nobody's happy when you lose at home to the Raiders. There's not going to be anything pleasant to say about it. Hopefully we're having a different conversation, not this time, but a few hours later, around 7:30 next Sunday night after the Ravens play down in Dallas. Hopefully it's a completely different chat. Love you guys. Appreciate you. Let's all try to be level-headed as much as possible. Not us, I mean everybody else. Like, let's try to act like normal human beings during the course of the week. A football team lost, that's not the end of the world. Don't think that it means that you need to go out acting like a-holes all over the place. We will see you back here next Sunday. Thank you to Griffin as well, and hopefully Justin Tucker will get his work together as well over the course of the next 7 days. Love you, everybody. We'll see you next Sunday for the next